What do we have here, Bill?
This is my gourmet kitchen.
This is the gourmet kitchen. Well, Bill, this kitchen looks fantastic. Here's to you.
Thank you.
All right. So, Bill, let's talk about what we got here. This is a kitchen island. And, Bill, we've got some pretty specific rules that we have to follow for the electrical, for the kitchen islands. And for our viewers out there, you're going to see 3 code books here. I've got the 2017, I got the 2020, and the 2023. And why is that? Because there were significant changes when we switched over from 17 to 2020, and then another absolutely significant change when we went over to 2023. So this will be first one part of 3 videos. So this will be the first video that we're going to watch, and then next week we'll do another video on the 2020, and then the next week after that we'll do a video on the 2023 National Electrical Code. All right, so Bill, we call this an island. Just want to take 30 seconds to let you know what we do here at electricaltime.com. We do online electrical classes from the comfort of your home. And then we also have this free service. So if you click on the subscribe for free NEC questions, Monday through Friday, you'll get an NEC code question and an answer sent to your email. All right, so back to our video. And in the National Electrical Code, we've got some specific requirements that we must follow. So I'm going to take a look at my code book. And I find here a section. It's a section called 210.52C2. And that's called Island Countertop Spaces. Did you know that we have all these kinds of rules for all different things? Not just rules for the kitchen, but we have specific rules just for the island.
No, I didn't know that when I first started.
You know, and then just so the viewers know, Bill built this house himself. It's up in Elka Park, New York. Bill, how long did it take you to build this house?
It was 10 years from start to finish.
And how many square feet is this house?
8,400.
Is that big enough?
I downsized a little bit.
Okay, you downsized a little bit. But let me tell you, I've known Bill for many, many years. He's one of my very, very good friends. And he's allowing us to be in his kitchen so that we can show you, the apprentice electricians out there, you know, when you're wiring, when you're doing the rough-in wiring, or you're doing finish wiring, it doesn't really matter, you know, how to get this wired up so that you can pass your inspection and beat a code. All right, so sorry for getting all excited about this, but you know what? There are so many rules in the code, and that's what I do. I'm an electrical instructor, and I love teaching it. So I'm hoping that you're going to get something out of this video. So we've got 210.52C2, and that's called Island Countertop Spaces. And this is an island countertop space. And it says, at least one receptacle shall be installed at each island countertop space with a long dimension of 24 inches or greater and a short dimension of 12 inches or greater. You know what? Just for the heck of it, let's measure this countertop.
Well, I can tell you I know all the measurements by heart in this house. It's a little over 4 foot.
Okay, and you're right, it's just a little bit over 4 feet.
And just over 8 foot this way.
And let's measure that one over here. And it is just a bit over 8 feet. Wow. I'm telling you, this is a really nice sized island. So why did you design this island to be so big?
Well, to have an island this big is when you have a lot of company and you want to put a buffet or something out, you could spread a lot of food, put in hot plates over here to keep food warm.
Okay, pretty cool. And I would imagine that this slab, and what is this material made of?
This is quartz. It's 1-inch thick quartz. This one slab would probably weigh about 600 pounds, plus the cabinets under here is another 300. You're gonna get over a little 1,000 pounds here in the middle of the room.
So you got about 1,000 pounds here. And let me ask you, I mean, you're a perfectionist. Whatever you do, it's got to be perfect. Do you have additional supports that were structured for this island.
Yeah, double 2x12s on each side underneath in the floor joists, 2 in the middle, sitting on top of 4 LVLs on each side,
Wow.
which should hold about 4,000 pounds in this area with no
Wow.
problem.
So again, for our electricians out there, if you're helping your customer to design, something like this, you might want to say, you know what, there might be a lot of weight here. You might want to look at reinforcing the floor joists so that they don't sag over time, because this is a lot of weight. And I would imagine once this is fully loaded up with everything, you probably have at least another, I'm going to say 100, 200 pounds.
Easy.
And then when you're having all the food here, for the family and the friends gatherings, you probably have another 100, 200 pounds of stuff on top of here.
Yeah, maybe another 120 when my wife dances for me on it.
Well, let's not go there. All right. But you know what? This is like absolutely, and I could tell that everything is solid here. You did a fantastic job. For your island countertop space, if your island is 24 inches or longer on the long side, and if it's 12 inches or greater on the short side, that's an island. And you're going to have to comply with the rules under the 2017 National Electrical Code. Also, check out which version of the code you're on right now. You might still be on the 2014 code. You might be on 2017. You might be on 2020, or you might be on 2023. So you got to make sure what version of the code that you're on. So Bill, when we're putting the receptacles, right, we're sort of limited to where we can put them. And I see that you chose these locations here for the receptacle outlets. Now, I said receptacles and I said receptacle outlets. So a lot of people get them confused. So let me explain that to our viewers out there. So when you've got a receptacle device, that receptacle device, like this duplex receptacle over here, that receptacle device is inside a receptacle outlet. That's the box. So when you're reading your code book, you're going to see that it sometimes requires receptacles, and sometimes it requires a receptacle box. All right, so Bill, we're going to talk about the receptacle outlet location. And we find that in our code book in 210.52C5. And it says here, receptacle outlets. Before, when we were reading the island countertop spaces, it says at least one receptacle. So you see how it says in the code book? In one place it talks about the receptacle, and the other place it talks about the receptacle outlets. All right, so subtle differences, but they're super important differences. So again, in 210.52C5, we got receptacle outlet location, and it says receptacle outlets shall be located on or above, but not more than 20 inches above the countertop or work surface. So that really doesn't apply to this island, but if we have a regular countertop, let's say where the sink is, and then we have cabinets on top of the sink. So what they're saying is, for the required receptacle outlets, they don't want it to be too high. So let's say this was the countertop with the sink, like we have behind you over there. So, but let's say you didn't have a cabinet. Let's say there was no cabinet. So what it's saying is you can't put that receptacle as high as you want, the receptacle outlet. So you're going to start from your countertop and you're going to measure 20 inches, and that's the maximum that the top of that receptacle box outlet can be. I wouldn't make it 20 inches. I think it's a little bit too high. I'd make it somewhere comfortable. But if you're going to use that as one of the required receptacle outlets, let's say for that countertop where the sink is over there, you cannot be higher than 20 inches. So Bill, I'm going to now talk to you about something called assemblies that are listed for use in the countertops or work surfaces. So let's say the homeowner or designer, they want to have these pop-ups. Let's say one here in the middle, one over here, and then one over here. And those are assemblies. Those are receptacle outlets, so that when you push on it, it pops up. It's called the pop-up. And you plug your stuff in, and when you're done, you push it back down. So I'm going to read that here. It says that receptacle outlet assemblies listed for use in countertops or work surfaces shall be permitted to be installed in countertops or work surfaces. The key thing here, it has to be a receptacle outlet assembly that's listed for use in countertops and work surfaces. And the reason for that, Bill, is because when we've got this countertop for the island, there's a pretty good chance it's going to get wet. Somebody's going to be washing it and water's going to get all over the place. So they want to use a listed assembly for that purpose so that it minimizes the entrance of water. So if somebody were to build something, let's say somebody were to cut out a hole or a box and they were to put something there that might not be listed for the conditions of use in the kitchen. And so you got to be careful. Just don't use anything, because us electrical inspectors might ask you, hey, where's the listing instructions? Where's the installation instructions? Oh, I don't have them. I threw them away. When this house was getting built, and I know you've been on different job sites with Henry, how many times would you see the electricians reading the instructions?
Not that much. Only when they were a little confused, or they'd go back to Henry and ask him.
A lot of times the answers are in the installation instructions. So save those installation instructions. So when the electrical inspector comes here, they're going to say, hey, can I see the instructions? And then, hopefully there'll be something that says that this is an assembly that is designed for that purpose, all right? So make sure you save it, because it can save you some headaches in the future. Also, don't throw those instructions away. Save them in a nice little book and give them to the homeowner, because after you leave doing the electrical work, the homeowner might have some questions on something, and that could be very helpful to save those instructions. All right. So Bill, any questions on that pop-up assembly?
Well, I just know, and if I did want to put the pop-up assemblies, I would have had a wider island, because I would have had to go in between the cabinets, so we wouldn't have cut out a cabinet in the middle. Cabinets would have been spread apart in the middle, and space for the assembly to slide down in between them, so we wouldn't cut into a drawer or anything in here.
Right. Now, Bill, that's a great point. Holy moly, you just gave me an idea here. All right, so check this out, everybody. So if, let's say, the homeowner says, I want you to put one assembly here for the pop-up, one here, and one here. All right. What I don't advise you to do as electricians, remember, this is, Bill, how much do you think this slab cost in today's dollars?
This slab here, when I had it done, it was like $1,800. Today, it's probably maybe $2,300. I
would say even more than that, because prices have really escalated. We're now in the year 2023, and everything's like super expensive. I'd say, I would say something like this, fabricated, installed, you're looking at, $3,000.
Could be, yeah.
Maybe even more, depending on the material. So here's what I'm going to advise our electricians out there. If you think you're going to take out your hole saw, even if it has a carbide bit on it, and you're going to start drilling holes into this $3,000 or $4,000 very expensive slab, I'm going to recommend don't do it. Have somebody else do it that it works with this. Maybe the kitchen people can come here and they can bore out those holes. Next, remember where that hole is, there might be something underneath. There might be the edge of the cabinet. It can even be a drawer. Now imagine where you drill the hole, that's right where the drawer is. Now you got a big problem. Who's going to go and fix this now? So you, as the expert electrician, you're going to say, hey, Bill, I know that you want the hole over here, but you know what? Let me open up this drawer and let me see how long this drawer is. And I want to look behind it and make sure that we have enough free space.
Yes.
All right? So make sure you do that. That could save you a really big headache. All right, so you see, Bill, there's a lot of things that us electricians have to figure out when it comes, just to do some electrical. It's not like so easy. And all of the electricians out there, the licensed electricians, I mean, we spend a lot of time, reading our code books. And you can see how thick this code book is here. This is no joke. All right, so we just talked about the assemblies, for those pop-ups. And let's continue. And it also says, receptacle outlets rendered not readily accessible. And what that means, not readily accessible, it means that I can't get to it nice and easy, right? For something to be readily accessible, what it means, I have to be able to get to it without climbing over something or under something, or the use of a portable ladder. So we have that requirement for GFCI receptacle devices, which is important. We have that requirement for circuit breakers, right? It's got to be readily accessible. All right, so make sure that you understand that term, readily accessible and not readily accessible. Super important. And my recommendation, when you're reading the code, if you come to a term that you don't know what that term means, stop. Go into Article 100, the definitions. See if there's a definition on it to help you to understand the code a little bit better. So let's continue. And I'll start again. Receptacle outlets not rendered readily accessible by appliances that are fastened in place. Appliance garages, sinks, or range tops as covered in 210.52C1 exception, or appliances occupying dedicated space shall not be considered as these required receptacle outlets. So Bill, I know that's a lot of confusing stuff in here, and let me see if I can simplify it for everybody. So one of the things they talked about is an appliance garage. Bill, I'm going to take a chance here. Do you know what an appliance garage is?
Do I need a garage door opener for it?
Maybe. I don't see why not. I mean, if it's a garage,
Kitchen's big enough.
If it's a garage, right, and could you have a garage door opener? I guess you could. All right, so this stumped me when I read. I said, what's an appliance garage? I'm like, what kind of crazy things are they talking about here? So an appliance garage, let's say we had a blender over here, and let's say there was a box surrounding that blender, and there was a door, and that door opens up like a garage, right? It can just open up. It doesn't have to roll in. It can roll in. I've seen appliances garages where you roll them up and then you have access, let's say, to that blender. But because it's inside the appliance garage, there's going to be a receptacle outlet in here with a receptacle device. So what they're saying is, for that appliance garage, that receptacle outlet is not considered as one of the required outlets for this island. All right, so now everybody's an expert on appliance garages, but Bill said, hey, can he use the remote? I thought that was pretty funny. All right, so let's continue. So we're going to look now at exception to 5, and that's going to be exception to 210.52C5. So it's really important that we look at the exceptions, because there's a lot of stuff in the exceptions that can allow us or permit us to do different things. So let's start reading that exception. And it says, to comply with the following conditions of 1 and 2, receptacle outlets shall be permitted to be mounted no more than 12 inches below the countertop or work surface. And notice it said receptacle outlets. All right, so let me explain that here. Let's go over here, Bill. And let me grab the ruler. So we're going to start here at the surface of the countertop. And we're going to measure down 12 inches, which is down here where my thumb is. So Bill, the way that I read that, it says that the receptacle outlet cannot be any more than 12 inches below the surface of this countertop. So what that means to me is that when Steve if Steve's doing this job, I'm going to start here. I'm going to say here, 12 inches. That's the lowest that the box can go. So I'm going to measure to the bottom of the box. Now, can I put it closer? Do I have to put it down to 12 inches? What do you think?
Yes.
You can, but 12 inches is the maximum that you can go, so that it's a required, one of the required receptacle outlets, okay? Really important that you understand that. So if I put that box down to 12 inches, and then I put my receptacle device, that means any one of those receptacles, if it's a duplex receptacle, I can reach it nice and easy, because some of these cords that come on appliances, they can come 24 inches, 30 inches. So you don't want to have to use an extension cord when you're doing this. You want to make sure that you're using the cord that came with the appliance, because in the directions for that appliance, it might say, do not use extension cords, do not use relocatable taps. Those are those power strips. So you just want to make it as safe as possible. All right, so we just talked about that, the 12 inches. And it also says, Bill, receptacles mounted below a countertop or work surface in accordance with this exception that we just talked about shall not be located where the countertop or work surface extends more than 6 inches beyond its support base. So what that means, so if we have our countertop here, where this countertop extends past its support base. So let's measure this and see what we got. So we have an even 1 inch over here. And I know you did that on purpose to make that 1 inch. All around. So if I do 1 inch over here, I'm going to measure 1 inch over here. Wow. Perfect. All right. So not to say that 1 inch is the magic number, but that's a good, extension here from the space. So if the countertop, goes a certain distance, and I'll go back and I'll read the code again. What it says is that if it's too far from its base, that you cannot use that receptacle outlet as one of the required receptacles. And I'm going to read it again. And it says in the exception, so receptacles mounted below a countertop or work surface in accordance with this exception shall not be located where the countertop or work surface extends more than 6 inches beyond its support base. And again, it says extends more than. Okay, so just make sure you got that, because when the electrical inspector gets to the job, if it's a 2017 National Electrical Code job, and the electrical inspector takes their ruler and they measure more than 6 inches, and you're saying, hey, that's my required receptacle outlet, then guess what? What do you think, Bill? What's the inspector going to say?
If it was 6 inches, it should pass. If it's more, no.
That's right. The inspector will say, I'm sorry, but it extends more than 6 inches. And also, don't forget, we've got to do this 12-inch measurement here from the top. So be careful about that. But again, I don't recommend these receptacles on the side of a cabinet, especially you have a walkway here, right? And little kids are going to be going back and forth all the time. So please take our advice. Bill's grandchildren got hurt. I've heard stories about children getting really hurt, burned by the liquids, and even killed. All right, so Bill, do you have any questions for our viewers and myself?
Not today. I've actually learned a lot building this, and I understand a lot of the codes now.
Okay, well, I'm glad I could help, but I do have a question for you, Bill. Okay, so our viewers can see that we have 2 receptacle outlets here. Those are the boxes that are in here. Bill, looking at those receptacle devices, how many receptacles do you have?
I would say 2, but I have learned that that is actually 4 in reality.
Right, so what we call this is a duplex receptacle. So I got 1 receptacle, 2, 3, and 4. So I actually have 4 receptacles, but I have 2 duplex receptacles. And that's an important distinction that you should know about when you're reading the code. You can have a receptacle device that maybe has 3 places to plug it in, 4 places to plug it in. And each one of them is a receptacle. Hey, Bill, I forgot to mention something.
What's that?
Okay, so we got a kitchen here. Is GFCI protection required? Yes. And you got to go take a look at 210.8. All right, so 210.8 in your National Electrical Code, it'll tell you about the requirements for providing GFCI protection for personnel. So that means that these receptacles, let's say we're talking about this island over here, that those receptacles are required to be GFCI protected. Either you can do that by a receptacle device, or you can provide GFCI protection over, let's say, at the breaker panel. Also, Bill, have you ever heard about this before, arc fault protection?
Yes.
Okay, and how did you find out about that? Because I remember you asked me years ago, why you had to buy these breakers and how expensive they were. And I'm sure the electricians out there have heard the same things, from their customers. So what arc fault does, we've got one that is designed for a series parallel type of arc. And a series is within its own circuit, if there's a little arc. And parallel could be between the ungrounded, the hot conductor, and the neutral, or from the ungrounded conductor to the equipment grounding conductor. We can have that arc going across. Then we've got these breakers called dual function. And what dual function is, that's pretty cool. You got a breaker that provides GFCI protection and AFCI protection, which we call arc fault. And what the arc fault does, it actually senses if there's an abnormal arc in the circuit. And it's going to say, well, that's not normal. I don't recognize that as a recognizable signature on my sinusoidal waveform. I know that's a big fancy term, but if you come to my class, I'll explain to you what I just said. So what happens is all of these electronics produce a different type of waveform, right? They have some kind of effect from the voltage to the current. And I might not be saying that right, and I'm trying to keep it as simple as I can because I don't want to give Bill a big headache today on electrical theory. It's not my purpose. So this is one of the areas that is required for arc fault protection under 210.12. And if you read that in your 17 code book, it's going to tell you that those receptacles that are in the kitchen of a dwelling unit also have to be arc fault protected. All right, so make sure again, those receptacles. Oh, we forgot one more thing, Bill.
What's that?
Oh, we also have to make sure that these are tamper-resistant receptacles. And tamper resistance is for usually, what they did for the little kids, they were trying to stick things into the receptacle outlets and they were getting,
Every single outlet in my house is tamper resistant.
So, you have to look at the occupancy, and this is a dwelling unit. So the receptacles here for the countertop, right, have to be GFCI protected. The receptacles in the kitchen have to be arc fault protected. And the receptacles in the kitchen also have to be tamper resistant. So a lot of information out there, and make sure you inform your customer that, we're going to have to provide for arc fault protection, and explain to them why that expensive breaker is what it is, because it really helps to save a house from catching on fire.
Hey, Steve, you know what I forgot to tell you?
What did you forget to tell me, Bill?
When you go to the store or an electrical supply and you buy your outlets, there's many times that I bought the wrong outlets.
Oh, okay.
Because I did not realize you'd have to look on the box to find out, make sure that it says TR on the box. They still sell non-TR receptacles, those tamper resistant.
They do.
And I've made that mistake many times.
Right, you go to the, let's say, to the big box store, you buy the pack of 10 receptacles, and then you bring them home, to give them to the electrician, obviously. And then you find out it doesn't say TR, which is tamper resistant. That's a really good point. So in dwelling units, and there's a couple of places in the dwelling unit that they don't require tamper resistant receptacles, but I'm going to say Steve says, right? Steve says, just put all tamper resistant receptacles, because chances are you're going to have these in your truck and you're going to get them mixed up. And then the electrical inspector is going to go there and says, hey, I see that receptacle is not tamper resistant. And you're going to look like an idiot. And if the customer's there with the inspector, now you look like an idiot times two. And then you have to explain to the customer and to the electrical inspector that you don't know what you're doing. All right, that's not good. So hopefully you got a lot of information out of this video. Bill and I have spent a lot of time here to talk about things. And again, Bill's been very gracious to let us use his kitchen. Hopefully you got some good information out there. And again, make sure you go to my website, electricaltime.com. If you're an electrician, right? If you're not an electrician, these questions and answers are probably not going to make too much sense to you. But if you're an electrician, whether you're an apprentice, whether you're a journeyman, whether you're a master, or even an electrical inspector, or somebody that we call the AHJ, that's the authority having jurisdiction, go sign up for my free code questions and answers. They're free. And every day, Monday through Friday, I try to find interesting questions and give you some nice answers to help make sense of it. Again, thanks a lot.
Steve,
oh, Bill's not finished.
You know, just to let you know, on every outlet, the inspector will know. It will have a TR written on the receptacle,
Yes.
stamped in there. And that's how they would pick it up if it was not tamper resistant.
That's right. And also, if you look inside the receptacle,
You see a little plastic
You
piece
see a little
blocking it.
plastic thing. All right. So, Bill, that's a good point. Thank you very much again. And we'll catch you on the next video where we're going to be talking about the 2020 NEC as it applies to these island countertops for the kitchens in a dwelling unit. Thanks a lot.